The 8-Minute Devotion is on a 12-week break for the summer. We'll be back with brand new episodes on September 9th. Until then, enjoy this episode from our classic I Am series, first recorded back in 2019. God bless and have a great summer.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the 8-Minute Devotion. So glad you can join us on this Tuesday as we are looking at Jesus, his statement that I am the door. We are looking at this statement of Jesus, the third of the 7 I ams in the Gospel of John. Jesus said, I am the door. And yesterday we saw that he is the door that feeds, he provides for his people. He gives us the sustenance we need, that spiritual life that only comes from him. Today we're going to see that he is also the door that protects. Jesus is the door that protects. When we go through that door, we have protection. When we go through that door, it's like we're entering a mighty fortress. That is Jesus. He is the door that protects. So in the context of saying he's the door, what does Jesus say in John 10 and verse 10? He's just been explaining what it means that he's the door. He gives us pasture. Then he said this in John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Jesus said that the thief comes to steal. The thief comes to kill. The thief comes to destroy. But he came to give life. So right in the context of being the door, Jesus speaks of the thief. And who's Jesus talking about? Well, of course, he's talking about Satan, our very real adversary, our very real enemy, Satan. You know what we need to realize is that there is a real devil who roars about as a lion, seeking whom he may devour, as James 4 tells us. This is not a made-up fear tactic. This is not just something that we talk about that's make-believe, but Satan is a real evil entity. He is a real being, a real enemy. He is completely malevolent, absolutely evil, and irredeemable. He's compared to a lion seeking whom he may devour. You know, I remember once I was at the zoo with my wife, the lovely and talented Delia, and this was actually before we were married. This was one of our first dates when we were, considering marriage, and we went to the zoo in Singapore. And what happened, the zoo at Singapore, it's a very nice zoo. You can see the animals quite clearly. And we were looking at the lions, and at the part of the zoo we were at, the lion enclosure here, they had this plexiglass window where you could actually get right next to the lion. You could get right next to it. You would just be a couple feet away with just this glass in between you. And the lions, of course, they're quite used to people. So the lion is just lounging there, and we are right next to the lion when all of a sudden it lunged straight at Delia and I, Delia actually says this was one of the reasons she married me was that when that happened, I put my arm in front of her, pushed her away, and I stepped in front of the lion, stepped between her and the lion. It was just that instinctual thing. Of course, there was glass, but in that moment when the lion's lunging at you, you don't think that way. It's just an instinct thing. But what had happened was that the zookeeper had thrown a piece of meat down right at the glass. So the lion actually saw the meat, but all we could see was the lion lunging at us full speed. And I tell you, it is a fearful thing when a lion lunges at you. Their limbs are gigantic, their paws, their claws, of course, their mouth. It's gigantic. And Satan is compared like that. Just like a lion who would go to destroy, that's what Satan is like. He is completely malevolent, absolutely evil, irredeemable. With human enemies, when we have a human enemy or a wicked person, we normally can find something relatable deep inside that person, or something human, or something redeemable, or some explanation of how they were hurt, how they became so twisted and so evil. Many of our greatest stories, they show some hope for the enemy at the end, that this extremely wicked enemy at the very end turns towards the light, turns towards good, has some small redemption at the end of the story. And, that's because as human beings, we are all redeemable. And we do all have this hope that even the worst enemy can be redeemed. It shows a faint glimmer of how God redeems us. That's why our stories all have this. But we must say, Satan is not like that. Satan is not like that human enemy. He's not like the Darth Vader who at the very end he turns, who had something good deep inside of him. Satan is not redeemable. He is not merciful. He is not just a hurt, innocent guy. He's not relatable. He will not somehow turn or relent in the end. He is unending in his desire to steal, to kill, and to destroy. He wants to destroy life. He brings poverty. He brings lack. He brings sickness. He authors racism and hate and pornography and abortion in the human race. He brings sin, and he delights in your eternal destruction. That's the sort of enemy we have, friends. But I say all of that not to make us fear, because we don't ever need to fear, but just to wake us up to our need for Jesus, our need for his protection. You see, as believers, we have no fear of the enemy. We have no fear of Satan, because there is a door of protection. He is the door to safety. He is the way to full protection, and that is Jesus when he says, I am the door. When we are inside this door, inside this shelter, we have no fear, because he protects us from the wicked one. He protects us from Satan. We are safe when we are in his will, when we are in that door. You know, as believers, we dwell in the shelter of the Most High. He is our refuge and fortress. He keeps us from the deadly pestilence, even in this season of COVID-19, this pandemic. He keeps us. He protects us from the deadly pestilence. He covers us in his wings. We do not fear the terror of the night or the arrow of the day. All of these things I just paraphrased were from Psalm 91. The Lord protects us, and he is the door to protection. You know, if you've been under fear of what the enemy is going to do, if you've been under fear of the devil, of demons, have no fear, friends. We have a door of protection. Think of going through a mighty gate, and on the other side of that gate is a fortress. The enemy cannot attack you on this side of the door. Jesus is the door to protection. Now, that doesn't mean nothing bad ever happens to us. That doesn't mean that that the Lord never allows Satan to do things that are momentarily. But it does mean that every bad thing that happens to us, the Lord turns to good. He protects us from what matters. He will not allow our faith to be destroyed. He will not allow us to be destroyed. No, everything he allows is for our ultimate good, and he protects us. And we can believe him for healing. We can believe him for provision. We can believe him for protection, that he keeps the enemy from stealing, from killing, from destroying, because he came to give life and give it more abundantly. We're going to look at that life he came to bring. He's the door to life. We're going to see that tomorrow. But first, remember, he's the door to protection. We have no fear of the enemy because the Lord protects his people. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow on the 8-Minute Devotion.
Thank you for listening to the 8-Minute Devotion. We trust you've been encouraged and blessed today. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or by visiting the8minutedevotion.podbean.com. For questions or comments, please email us at the8minutedevotion@gmail.com or visit our Facebook page. We would love to hear from you.